Hey, what's up and welcome to Game Positive. The next gen hype train is starting to depart. There has been a ton of news that's come out since my last video and I can't wait to talk about it here. First, I want to talk about the big one, the Megaton. The price has been revealed, ladies and gentlemen. The Xbox Series S is going to cost $299 in the US, $399 Canadian, and the Series X is going to be $499 US, $599 Canadian. These prices are not really a surprise to me. This is exactly, for the Series X, this is exactly what I anticipated. The Series S was a big unknown. I didn't really know what to expect. There was rumors that it could just be a streaming box. There was rumors that it could be $100 less or $50 less, like who knows. But now we have a confirmed price, and man, is it sexy. That is a solid number. That is going to put a lot of boxes under people's Christmas trees this year. But that is not all. The date for the console has also been revealed. It is coming on November 10th, 2020, which coincides with a lot of the rumors that will be coming out, and a lot of games have kind of shifted their release date to reflect that date. There's actually a semi-decent launch lineup, something that I didn't quite expect with all the stuff that's going on with COVID, but we're going to get into that later. I also want to say there's one also really cool thing that's happened that we kind of expected as well. It's going to be a part, or the consoles, the new series consoles are going to be a part of the Xbox All Access program in both the United States and Canada, as well as a bunch of other countries that I'll list on the screen right here. And the prices for that have been revealed as well, at least the US prices. We're looking at $24.99 for the Series S and $34.99 for the Series X per month with zero interest. And that also includes your Game Pass Ultimate membership, which leads me right into the next piece of amazing news. Game Pass has gotten better. Somehow the best value in gaming, with literally no competition in terms of its value, has somehow gotten even better. Usually it takes a competitor to come in for a product to make itself better. Looking at you, Madden. But not in this case. Game Pass has added EA Access, now called EA Play, for free into your existing Game Pass membership starting on September 15th. This is the biggest drop of titles at once, aside from the launch of Game Pass ever. You're getting 60 plus games from the EA library across all devices as well. So that's Xbox, that's xCloud, and a lot of them are coming to Xbox Game Pass or PC as well. There's some massive, huge titles in here. I know when people see EA, they automatically think the sports games, but there's a lot more than that as well. You have Dragon Age, you have Mass Effect, you have Star Wars Battlefront, you might even have Star Wars Squadrons at some point. You have Battlefield, Titanfall. They have EA original games from indie studios like A Way Out or Sea of Solitude. You have Rocket Arena. You have other backwards compatible titles like Crysis and Skate. You have the Dead Space trilogy. You also get 10-hour trials for new EA games. So Star Wars Squadron may end up having a 10-hour free trial that you'll now get with your Game Pass membership. I remember playing Mass Effect early. I remember playing Battlefront and Battlefields early because of the 10-hour trial. It's really, really awesome. And then on top of that, obviously, you do get the sports games. You get the Maddens, the NHLs, the FIFAs, the UFC games, all of that. You get a 20% discount on all EA games just right off the top if you wanted to purchase one outright on the Xbox store. This is like insane value. And on top of that as well, one thing that kind of goes unnoticed is they have their own kind of EA Access rewards program that is similar to the Game Pass rewards, where they're going to give you specific unlocks for some of their free-to-play games. Like, for example, when Apex Legends came out, there was exclusive EA Access skins, and they gave you some of the in-game currency for free, as part of your membership. But yeah, all of that is coming on September 15th to Game Pass. That is, like, massive. Like, that is 60 plus games, like, just dropped for nothing, no additional cost. It actually is going to, if you are a subscriber of both like I am, it's going to actually save you money. So Microsoft is literally giving me $5 back so that I can have 60 plus more games on Game Pass. It's crazy. That is a huge announcement. And you get that plus the console for $24.99 a month or $34.99 a month, which if you do the math, with the total cost of the console plus the cost of Game Pass that you would pay for over 24 months, you actually save money in the total. So even if you have the money to buy the console up front, it makes sense to still do the monthly plan, not only for cash flow purposes, but also just total dollars saved. You save money that way. It's crazy. And because they released announced the release date for the Xbox, the launch lineup is starting to take form. They had other announcements such as Gears Tactics is finally coming to console, launching at launch with the Series X and Series S on November 10th, which will also be coming to Game Pass. You have Yakuza Like a Dragon, which was already scheduled for November 10th, which is why this November 10th date kind of came out or leaked almost, because they said that's a launch title and they gave the date of November 10th, but that's on Game Pass as well. The game that I'm probably going to play the most at launch, Destiny 2 Beyond Light, is coming on Game Pass on November 10th with all DLC right out of the gate, which is huge. Like normally an Activision game, you would see it cut. Well, so that's actually right. Sorry, that I lost track of that. Bungie's not part of Activision anymore, so that's probably why we're seeing it now. But you get one of the biggest like platforms of games, like of a game this gen, Destiny, my favorite franchise that came out of this generation, free on Game Pass, all DLC, something that I would have spent money on regardless. I can now put that money into a different game. Unreal. You also have Dirt 5 coming November 10th, which they said is going to have 4K 60 mode on Series X and also 120 FPS mode in performance mode, which is crazy. What else did they say? Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that actually moved its launch date to November 10th. It moved up a few days to launch with the Series X, and they confirmed that it's going to have a 4K 60 mode, which is something they refused to confirm up until this point, which just goes to show the power of the Series X and the type of fidelity you can expect with games on that system. Insanity. Tons of news. It all started with a leak that sprung into like a tidal wave of news from Xbox. I think their team handled that leak as well as anyone could have. They did a fantastic job. And man, oh man, oh man, is it exciting to be an Xbox fan today. Like, that's a ton of awesome news. One thing that I didn't make a video on yet, I was actually planning to do that yesterday when all this crazy news came out, and that kind of like ruined my plans, is kind of more of a deep dive on the Series X, or Series S, sorry, because they did reveal a lot. One of the things that was the most surprising to me is how close it is to the Series X in terms of its performance. So I'm going to probably flip up the spec sheet that they released here and go over some of that for you. The biggest deal for me anyway, aside from the price, is that it's going to have the same 8-core AMD Zen 2 CPU, which is only very, very slightly downclocked to 3.6 gigahertz with 3.4 gigahertz simultaneous multi-threading, which, by the way, is actually faster than the PlayStation 5. And I know that like the actual clock speed isn't the only thing when you're comparing CPUs, but keep in mind that the PS5 CPU is on the same platform, the same Zen 2 platform from AMD. So when they are on the same platform using the same architecture, that clock speed matters a lot more. Now, obviously, how each platform holder implements the CPU plays a big part in it. It doesn't necessarily mean that the Series S is going to perform computations faster, but the fact that that is faster on paper, like its clock speed for $299, is massive. That is a huge deal. The biggest difference, though, is what comes next with the Series S and the Series X, is that although it does use the same AMD RDNA 2 GPU, it has a significantly less CUs or computation units than the Series X. We're looking at 20 CUs for the Series S, 52 CUs for the Series X, which, I mean, obviously that's a lot weaker, but it's weaker like to scale with what its expected output resolution is. So without getting too complicated, and this is a very like kind of layman's term explanation, the main kind of purpose of a GPU is to basically just draw polygons on the screen. The main kind of component into how good a game actually looks is the art direction, which is like not hardware dependent in most cases. But technically speaking, the more CUs you have, the more power you have in your GPU, the more polygons you can draw on the screen, which means you can run games at a higher resolution. So when you take away power from the GPU, if you are planning on just running at a lower resolution, that doesn't necessarily mean the game's performance is going to be significantly worse. What I mean by performance is like frame rate and stuff like that. So there is a large probability that you could see a game that's running at the exact same frame rate and looks very similar on a 1080p screen on a Series S versus playing that same exact game on a Series X on a 4K screen with a similar frame rate and just similar texture resolutions. If you're playing both consoles on a 1080p screen, they're going to look really, really close. Now, there is super sampling and there is higher texture resolutions, even though the total game resolutions is lower on the Series S. So it still is going to look better, but they're going to look way, way, way closer than what a VCR Xbox One game looks like on a 1080p screen versus an Xbox One X game. And that's what makes this price so compelling, is if you don't have a 4K screen, you're getting the same CPU, so it's going to be able to have the same gameplay experiences just at a lower resolution, which is crazy. Anyways, I kind of went a little bit too far into that. I'm sorry with all the jargon and stuff like that, so let's keep going. So like I mentioned, the GPU on the Series S still has the same RDNA 2 base, same as the Series X, which means all of like the RDNA kind of advanced features that the RDNA 2 features that you can expect with Series X are still coming to Series S. So you're still getting an advanced hardware scaler, which is going to be used for upscaling that 1080p content that it's outputting if you are playing a Series S on a 4K TV. So it's still going to look okay and pretty good, honestly, if you have a 4K TV and you just want to save a few bucks. You're still getting hardware accelerated DirectX ray tracing. You're still getting the mesh shaders. You're still getting variable rate shading. It's exactly the same as the Series X in terms of its feature count. It just doesn't have the same amount of horsepower to bump or to drive those high resolution graphics, which, like, if depending on the person, which I'll get more into that in my like overview at the end, depending on the person, that might not even matter. And you can just save $200, which you could put towards a lot of other stuff. But anyways, let's carry on. The RAM, slightly different. It has 10 gigabytes of GDDR6 RAM instead of 16 on the Series X, but it is kind of at a slower speed. But again, that is scaled in tune with the resolution that it's targeting. So it doesn't necessarily mean the console is going to feel slow or sluggish. It's just not going to, like, that RAM is mostly going to be used as VRAM, which is what the SoC uses to just render more and more polygons. So because we're rendering like 4 times less polygons on 1080p versus 4K, the difference in RAM is scaled appropriately. So again, it's not going to really slow things down. It's just going to be more in line with the system's capabilities of rendering stuff at 1080p, or in some cases 1440p, which is the highest that they said it's rated for. It's still going to support quick resume because it still uses the exact same custom SSD, which again reiterates what I was saying. It's not going to feel sluggish and slow like your original Xbox feels compared to a One X. Both of these consoles are going to feel next gen and be next gen, which is amazing. They also have a kind of a new feature that's going to be on both this is the first time I heard of it from the video that they released called sampler feedback streaming, which, like I said, it's going to be on both, which allows the games to only load portions of the textures that are required for the scene rendering as they are needed, which makes use of the memory more efficient, and is not possible on older gens because that data just can't get streamed fast enough. So again, a quick layman's term explanation of that. If you zoom in on a basketball, like in NBA 2K, for example, it actually has like the little bubble grips that you would see on a basketball. Like, it actually is like really high res. You don't even see it when you're playing, but it's there for like the instant replays and stuff like that. And obviously that takes resources to render. So if I'm looking at that as a player in a replay almost, or not even a replay, but in gameplay, it's only going to render the part of the ball that I can see, which saves a lot of memory from rendering the whole entire ball. And then as the ball moves, as a player's dribbling it or shooting it or whatever, as it's rotating in the air, it's going to on the fly kind of render everything that it needs to render. And it can stream that data in effectively because of how fast the I/O is on these new consoles. So that's a cool feature. That's going to make that 10 gigs go a lot farther than it otherwise would. They did kind of show some demos of the Series S just to kind of hammer home that it's not some underpowered cheap machine. It is like a fully capable next-gen device. They had an Outer Worlds demo where they showcased the difference into the loading times. If you've ever played Outer Worlds on console using a hard drive, like a platter-based hard drive, a spinning disk hard drive, you know that these load times are like Elder Scrolls levels. They had a demo where they booted the game on a 1S, and the game took 53 seconds to load in. In the demo, though, the Series S was able to load that exact thing in only 12 seconds. And they didn't show it, but when you get those quicker load times, like with fast travel, those are going to be even faster, which is fantastic. They even had a demo of Gears 5 to showcase that even, yes, the GPU is technically lower teraflops than like the One X, which kind of leads some people to believe that the One X is more powerful than this. It's not, which I can talk about a little bit later. But to demo the GPU, they showed the Series S running Gears 5 at 120 FPS. It's hard to see that on YouTube because YouTube maxes out at 60 FPS. But even if it can hit that, like a 1080p, 120 FPS game for $299, like you can't build a PC that's going to be able to do that. This isn't like Counter-Strike, like a game that's like very well optimized. It's very, very old and has like really low end textures and really kind of it's more of an esport game. Gears is running on a lot of the newer Unreal Engine features, and it's a pretty technically sound game, like technically modern game, I should say, because Counter-Strike obviously is extremely technically sound as well. But yeah, that was kind of the Series S. They did a huge breakdown on it. I'm really excited about that. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna buy a Series S, at least not at launch. I'm getting the Series X, but the Series S is definitely tempting as like a secondary box for maybe another room of the house. I think it makes a ton of sense if you're getting a PlayStation 5 at launch. Down the road, maybe when there's a good bundle on a Series S or a discount on a Series S, like it's really, really appealing as a secondary console. Or if you're a PC gamer and you're going to buy one of the new 30 series NVIDIA cards, which look fantastic, by the way. They revealed a lot of information about that I haven't talked about yet. Those cards are completely insane in terms of how powerful they are, and especially when you consider the price. So I know a lot of people that are on PC are going to and already have like kind of a pre-built rig where all it needs is to slap in a new graphics card. It makes a ton of sense to buy one of those 3070s instead of a Series X. But the Series S is a great option for like a living room kind of gaming device, especially when you consider Game Pass and cross save. So you can buy that 3070 NVIDIA GTX 3070 graphics card, pop it into your PC, open up a game like, who knows, Halo Infinite, and play it at your desk, sitting in your chair, like beautiful graphics, and everything looks great. But maybe your back's getting sore, you want to kick your feet up, you want to hang back on the couch, you can just walk over, and for $399 or $299, sorry, you're getting a very similar experience in terms of performance. Like you're going to be getting similar frame rates if Halo Infinite's going to be running at 120 FPS at 1080p, which it could be, or even if it's just like a secondary box where you can play some of your Game Pass games with a kid or a significant other or whatever. It's a very, very good deal. One thing that's a little bit sneaky as well that makes a lot of sense is if you are like somebody who is a extremely competitive gamer, picture this, like if you're a competitive gamer, you're probably playing on a monitor. The most common monitor that's used for like ultra competitive gaming is a 24-inch 1080p, like high refresh rate, like TN panel, right? So you're not really going to be playing these games, even if people have like a beast computer, right? They're going to be playing something like Counter-Strike on like the lowest settings possible because they don't want anything to give them any disadvantage. Any little frame drop or any little stutter is they're trying to avoid that. So if you can get an Xbox Series S, hook it up to a 1080p 24-inch like TN high refresh rate, high response time monitor, run a game like Halo Infinite, Call of Duty, etc., any like esports type game at 1080p 120 FPS, which I believe that this Series S is going to be capable of. You're saving $200, which you could easily put into an Elite controller, or you can put it into a really high quality headset that will give you an advantage. Maybe that $200 buys your monitor because those 24-inch TN panels are not that expensive. And that's a good way for someone who might be on a budget to get like a highly competitive esports setup. Instead of like buying the Series X and spending that $200 on like higher resolutions, when that's something that you're not necessarily like looking for. You're really just looking for like performance and value. So that's a really good spot for the Series S as well that I don't think anybody else is really talking about. Oh, one thing that I forgot to mention that my buddy Ralph here reminded me of that I wanted to slide in is the other huge difference between the Series S and the Series X is the hard drive or the SSD size. So the Series S, you're going to get a 512 gigabyte SSD, whereas in the Series X, you're going to get a 1 terabyte SSD. Now, I know that's a little troubling to people right now who currently have original Xboxes or even PS4s, for example, because the game installs sizes are huge right now. If I look at my Xbox, there's 3 games that I will never delete, and that's Destiny 2, Halo MCC, and Halo 5. If I add those games combined are like 350 gigs, which when you factor in the partitioning of the drive, that's almost an entire 500 gigabyte hard drive right there, which doesn't leave a lot of room, obviously, for new next-gen games and stuff like that. So I can understand why you'd be a little bit kind of hesitant to want to go with a drive that is only 512 gigabytes. But there's actually 4 reasons why you shouldn't necessarily be as worried as you might be. The first is smart delivery. With smart delivery, developers are going to be able to create builds of their games that are specific to whichever Xbox you have. So theoretically, a developer, let's say Call of Duty Cold War, they could create a Series S version of that, which is going to only have the 1080p textures in that build, which will significantly lower the install size, because right now on the original Xbox One, they don't have a way to do that. So even if you own a VCR Xbox, you're still going to have those 4K assets downloaded to your hard drive, because there's no way for them to differentiate that. So even though you can't use those textures, you're still going to have to pay for them, so to speak, with your hard drive space. And smart delivery is going to alleviate that, which will save a lot of your hard drive that way. The other thing that helps a lot is because of how fast the I/O is on the Xbox, developers are going to be able to reference a single asset that's placed multiple times throughout a area in a game, instead of having to render that asset over and over again. So a quick example where that could come into play, to put it into perspective, is let's say you're racing on a city street in Forza and you're going like 100 miles per hour in your car. All the street lights are coming one after another. Right now on a hard drive, because they can't necessarily take one version of that street light asset and stream it in as you get to it on the track, they have to put multiple instances of that same asset, copy and paste it over and over again, which takes up space, obviously, because you're creating multiple versions of that asset instead of creating a reference to it, which is another way you can shave some megabytes and maybe even some gigabytes off of an install size. The third thing is that you actually can purchase expandable memory down the road. It's not something that you need to get day one, but it's something that you can get down the road with the Seagate expansion slot cards. The prices aren't revealed on those, but if you look historically at expandable storage specific to video games, like I know the 360 had expandable drives, they were quite expensive. I anticipate these to be quite expensive. The rumored price I saw was $229 US, which is very, very high. That's like almost the whole cost of the console, which is kind of insane. So hopefully those either come down in price or that rumor is completely wrong, but it is still an option. And finally, the only games that actually have to be installed on the internal custom SSD are the Series X games. So those 3 games I mentioned before that are never leaving my hard drive, Halo MCC, Halo 5, and Destiny 2, I could still have those games on my hard drive. I would sacrifice the load times, but any of the Series X enhancements that they have should still work, and like any performance gains I get should still work for the most part. Maybe not a Series X patch, but just the inherent kind of advantages that you get from the console. So with that, you'll have to kind of weigh the differences to see if that's valid or not. But yeah, you could plug in a standard USB platter drive and save some of your non-Series X games to them, which will help save some space as well. So it isn't that much. 500 gigs still isn't a lot for today's day and age, but it's not as bad as you might think, because there's tons of ways where you could shave some valuable gigas off your hard drive. So yeah, just wanted to mention that. Thanks, Ralph. But yeah, man, like these are some crazy, crazy prices. It's interesting to see what Sony does next. I have a feeling, my guess anyway, is the disk drive PS5 is $499 US, $599 Canadian, and the diskless PS5 is $449, $549. That's my guess. We'll have to wait and see what happens. I know Sony has an event coming up soon. I imagine that's when we'll get the price. I think it might be this week, although this week is coming to an end. So maybe it's next week. I haven't actually seen an actual date. This is all just kind of rumors. I do know that Ubisoft actually has an event in a couple hours that I'm looking forward to. Might do a video on that as well. There's a leak that happened this morning that revealed the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake. I'm really hoping that that's a full remake and not a remaster, because that's one of the best games on the original Xbox. That was like, when, to me, at that point in my life, like, Ubisoft was essentially like the CD Projekt Red of like the early 2000s, with Splinter Cell, Prince of Persia, Rainbow Six, all that stuff. So really looking forward for that blast from the past. But yeah, like, so much awesome news from Xbox, so much value. The launch lineup is starting to take shape. I can't wait anymore. I'm definitely going to go to EB Games September 22nd as soon as they open and put my pre-order down. I just really, really can't wait. Anyways, this has gone on for a little bit longer than I thought it would. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope that info was useful. And remember to have fun out there. I'll see you next time. Take care, guys.